live television show with topics that are intended to inspire, delight, educate, and encourage. Focusing on the lives, experiences, and viewpoints of motherlode women, the show features a rotating cast of 4 women of all ages and from all walks of life. Quick, upbeat, and fast-paced with a variety of topics, this one-hour show will be aired live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8:30 a.m. Tune in, it's Just Between Us.
Good morning and welcome to Just Between Us, a talk show between 3 broads today that we've got here. 3 lovely ladies here, I should say, 3 that are just waiting to pour our knowledge out to you. I'm Susie from Volcano.
I'm Monique from Pioneer.
And I'm Pat from Sutter Creek.
Okay, let's get going here, Monique. I'm going to have you pick 2 topics, my dear.
Okay, how about these 2 right there?
And Patricia, the first one is number 3.
Okay, memories. Number 3. Why do you feel that as time passes, we look back at memories with more of an objective eye?
And the next one?
Number 4, friendships. This is a neat subject. Number 4, do you feel that your spouse needs to be your best friend to have your relationship thrive?
Please stay with us, and we're going to be right back.
Just Between Us, a spontaneous, intuitive live television show with topics that are intended to inspire, delight, educate, and encourage.
Welcome back to Just Between Us, and we're going to be talking about memories and what was the other one? Friendships. Okay, so let's go.
Okay.
Go for it, Monique. Which one do you want to do first?
Let's do memories. Why do you feel that as time passes, we look back at memories with more of an objective eye?
Because I think you're more mature. I think that you are able to face reality much more than you did when you were in that moment, and I think that maturity has a lot to do with it.
I agree, and I think as we get older, we become more of a critical thinker versus living in the moment, a young person, and reflection is always really powerful and useful, and when you think back, and you say, well, you know, it was like this back then, and I was in the moment, and maybe I was upset, or maybe I was anxious, or tired, or working all the time, and then you look back and go, hey, you know, maybe that wasn't so bad, and maybe I did learn something from that.
I kind of agree because
I
think that even if you're not immature, and even if you're not just thinking of the moment, I think when you're up close and within the situation, it's different than looking back on it. And that's just, I mean, because you grow and you change and things like that. But
how long? And what is the time frame for to make it a memory where it's not still maybe something distasteful or whatever, you know, or something that you have had to overcome? And you know, when can you put it to rest? And I think that's a sign of, you know, maturity, and you can look back and be objective.
It's right in your heart, and whether it was good or bad, it's not an intense feeling. It's just like, okay, this is what happened. I think it could be something as small of a time frame as a month, and it could be 10 years or more.
Sure.
I mean, I've had some issues where, like, 10 years, I finally go, okay.
Yeah,
that's all right. I'm done with it.
It's time to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's time to move on, and it's time to you know, put the cow out to the pasture, as they say, and let it go. But I think that if you dwell on something that was unpleasant, I think that can, when it keeps going over and over, and you don't put it to rest, and it becomes you know, just a memory, then I think that can come back and really, you know, bite you.
I do too. If you can stuff it away for X amount of time, but if you don't ever really become at peace with it, it comes, you know, if it's an issue with, wow, Christmas was so bad this year, and then 10 years go by, and every time Christmas comes up, that's all you think about.
Well, it's like if you become a single, you know, like if you go through a divorce or become a widow or whatever, the first holidays or even the first 2 holidays, and you go through that cycle of 2 years. There's hurt, there's bitterness, there's anger, the whole thing. But as time progresses, if you remember the good memories and the good times that you had when that person was there, then you can sit at the table or be with family and friends, and you know, you have that, and it becomes a good memory. It doesn't become a heartache or something that makes you embittered, you know, and you can see that.
Well, and then the other thing is the reverse. When you're in the middle of even, a friendship that is good. And you're going along, and then 10 years later, you think, that person was really a good friend to me. I may not even have realized how good a friend, because when it was happening, you don't necessarily think of each individual thing that happens with a friend. And then when you look back and, oh, I remember, and they did this for me, and I didn't ask them to, or they
you appreciate that person even more.
All of a sudden, you look at that at a whole different thing too, because especially if you're needing help in some way or another, you're concentrating on yourself, not the other person. And while you may have said, thank you, I'm so grateful you stepped in and helped me or whatever, you can look back on that like 5 years later and say, that person really did.
Or if you didn't say thank you, you think,
yeah,
wow.
they're really important in my life at the time.
And I didn't realize how good a friend. I mean, that's one of the things that, you know that they're your friend, but when all of a sudden they step up, way up over and aboard, and you go, okay, like, that person was really a good friend to me. And you have a different outlook. And if you're still friends, that's, that's kind of a thing where I've been in that moment where somebody did something for me, and it's like when you're in the midst of the turmoil and all that stuff, you don't think about sitting down and say, I really think you're a good friend. And then, there's a couple times when I've brought up like a year or two later, it's like, you really did me a favor, and I really appreciate it.
What is that old saying that if you remember childbirth, you'll never have a child again?
That's right. And how many children do we have?
So, that becomes a memory of screaming and yelling and all of that. But it's true. Don't laugh, Pat.
And the joy of having a child certainly outweighs the one day that is slightly miserable.
Or when you become a grandmother and you remember when you had yours.
I've moved 29 times since I've been married. And
Thank you. You've got a couple on me. I'm so glad.
And I always say, moving and childbirth are the same. When you don't know why you did it again until you're in the middle of it and it's too late.
Really, that's for sure.
And then you get something new and good at the end, and then you forget about it till the next time.
It's all a new adventure.
You better believe it. Absolutely. I know. I cannot believe this woman. She's been all over the United States and back, and good for you. All right, our next one.
Shall we go on then?
Yeah.
Okay. So
that's a memory of all that
packing. That's a memory, yes.
Friendships. That was number 4. Do you feel that your spouse needs to be your best friend to have your relationship thrive?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you have to start out, you have to have a friendship, and you have to put aside the fact that you love this person as a friend, because you have to build that with someone.
Build friendship, build trust.
Yeah. Build trust, respect.
They need to know who you are. So if you don't have a friendship where you can communicate really well and talk about, hey, before you came along, this is what happened, these great memories, these things weren't so good. And that's how you start to build trust, and just, a relationship is built on trust.
I don't think that your better half, the man in your life or whomever, I don't believe that they have to become your best friend. Because a lot of time, especially with women, you love your spouse and you can talk to them about anything or whatever, but women have that bond in a friendship that sometimes you have a different bond with the man in your life. But I think that you do have to build, when you start dating that person, they become your friend first, and you say, I really like that person, and then it goes into love. But I do feel that you have to have a good, strong friendship and look at things as a friendship. When you're in a crisis or whatever, they can't talk to you and tell you what you want to hear, or coming to you and talking to you as a husband or a boyfriend or whatever. It has to be as a friend, and then you say, okay, now I know they have my back.
And that's been the ultimate thing that Ted and I have always thought of, is we are each other's very best friends.
That's
I mean, I'm talking about over and above anybody else.
Right.
And for us, since we didn't even know each other that long before we got married.
Well, you met and got married 6 months later, practically?
Yeah, a little less than 6 months.
Yeah.
Like 5 days less than 6 months. But yes, and I was 18 when I met him, and he was 22. So we've been together over 47 years. So, it's we realized at the very beginning, I mean, we liked each other immediately. We loved each other very soon. But the thing is, I always said I was born 40 and worked backwards, because I was just talking to somebody and I said when I met him, he was very caring of me and protective.
Mm-hmm.
He had his own business. He had his own home. He was a full-time engineering student, and he was 22 years old. And I thought, okay, this is somebody who's got his act together. Mm-hmm. And I was never really a teenager. I
Neither
sort of
was I.
born an adult.
Yeah.
And then I feel younger now than I did
Right.
back then.
Right. I know exactly where you're coming from.
And the thing is that my dad was a very good person. He was a very good provider. He took care of his family and so forth. And I looked at Ted and said, that's what he is and
Right.
that's what I want. But we would really rather spend time with each other than other people anyway. We have a lot of friends and we do a lot of things and we do things separately, but it all comes down to the point where we still laugh all the time. We
Right.
still have
Nice.
lots of fun. We tease each other and things like that. And we had the same values as far as how we raised our kids, how we ran our
Right.
life and things like that.
And you're exceptional.
I know.
That's an exceptional situation. I mean, I have that with John now, that he is I say he's my best friend and my hubby. And what I meant is that you have other girlfriends that are best friends.
Oh, and I do. Yeah.
But your man has always got your back.
I completely agree. You know, when I was married, my husband was the number one person in my life. He was my best friend. I mean, we talked about everything. We got along really well. Whenever there was a problem, I knew for sure that he would be
Objective.
He might be objective, but he would stand up for me whether I was right or wrong, because he always had my back.
Right.
He was
Yeah.
always there. And he might say later, you know, I think you blew it on this one.
Right.
And I'll go, yeah, you're
And
right.
that's,
But
and
thanks
that's,
for looking out
that's
for
what
me.
a best friend does. They will tell you in private, not at
Yes.
the time. They will tell you in private, okay, I stuck up for you, but I want to tell you what I feel that the way you should have handled it. Just advice, but you blew it.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'm right there for you.
And I always knew that. And so, you know, husband is number one if he wanted to do something. And my friends and, you know, had this. His time was so limited because he worked a lot. I'd say, okay, you know, I'm going to take a rain check. My husband's home, and he wants to do this. And,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
and so he was always number one. And our relationship was like
Have you seen
this.
those sometimes that somebody will say, you know, let's go do this or do that, and I'll say, well, let me check and see, and they'll say, well, what do you have to check for? Because I respect my husband,
Right.
and he comes number one. I may love you to pieces, but he is number one in my life, and I have the not only the respect of him, but the courtesy to ask him, you know, hey, do you mind? You want to go do this? You want to go do that?
Well, and the other thing is that when our children left home, we
What are you
had-
left with? Him.
Well, and that was the funny thing, is that all of our friends said, you didn't have any, like, transition time. And my best friend, the woman that was my good friend in the Bay Area, she said, you two did something different than any other couple we've ever seen, is that you always took time for each other.
That's right.
And didn't spend all of the time with the kids. And I said, well, that's a no-brainer. When the kids leave, and they're, you know, that's the whole desire,
That's
is
the
that
problem
they
with
go.
so many people have that emptiness.
They have
I
not.
agree.
Yeah.
We have to move on, unfortunately,
Okay.
ladies.
Okay,
Our
all
next
right.
two.
We'll do these. Here we go. Number one, being realistic. Is being realistic sometimes too hard to fathom, and you choose to ignore a real-life situation? Well, you know, that could be.
We got a free-for-all.
And then we have a free-for-all.
Okie dokie.
Okay.
We're going to take a very short break, and we'll see you on the flip side of 3.
Just Between Us, a spontaneous, intuitive live television show with topics that are intended to inspire, delight, educate, and
Welcome back to Just Between Us. And Monique, we're going to be talking about being realistic.
Being realistic. Number one, is being realistic sometimes too hard to fathom, and you choose to ignore a real-life situation?
Sure, I think everybody sometimes wants to put up a barrier because they don't want to face something that is, you know,
Self-preservation. Sometimes
Yeah.
you just have to go, I can't do all this right now. This is going to have to be tabled. You go over there. I can only do what I'm doing right now.
But I think a mature person or a person that has their self together, runs a household, the whole big thing, sooner or later, you can put things on a back burner for so long, but then to be realistic, you have to face that and hit it head on.
You do.
And I think what I do is that when a bunch of things pile up, good or bad, you have to categorize what you're going to think about first, and then what you're going to think about next. And one of the things I don't really have much problem about, just life is what it is, you have to deal with it, and I'm really good at juggling about 10 things at a time. But when I've lost people, we've had deaths in the family, then it's kind of, okay, I can only think about this so much. I'm not going to think about anything
Coming
but
back to memories again,
yes,
going back to the good
stuff.
memories, right.
And then when I'm more capable of being a little bit away from it, then I will think about what has happened. And, I mean, I just lost my brother in January, and he was 10 years younger than me, so that's kind of a strange feeling, too,
Right.
because he was the baby of the family. And we knew it was coming because he was diagnosed with cancer 2 years before. But I didn't really want to think about him dying, and since he lived in L.A., I could put that out of my mind for periods of time, and then I would think about it.
Right.
And ease into the situation. And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, so I think I think everybody does that. I think they kind of have
Well,
to.
you don't want to have to dwell on it because it is such a sad situation.
Right.
And you feel
You want to feel healthy mentally. You want to feel good and be able to enjoy the time that you have with them and not dwell on, the inevitable or dwell on whatever your hard time was in your life. Keep going back to that and going back to that. Make it a memory, hopefully. But when it still is in the moment, whatever the issue is, sometimes you just got to go, okay, not today. I have to do this, and this is priority.
Yeah,
right.
That, some other time.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of with everything in life. I think that if you prioritize, then you'll get through it. The people who have problems are when they think about everything all at once.
Well, they make it
and then they
Their
just
minds are
get
just
like
jumbled
this.
or overwhelmed immediately.
Yeah, then they shut down.
They make it complicated, and it's like with anything else. If you've gone through a divorce, or if you've lost, a spouse, or the moving situation, you have a mental, or you write it down now. I forget the mental, but you have this checklist, right? And you've got to go through this checklist, and when you do that, it's not as bad as you thought it was going to be. A lot of people, Jay, just say, I can't do this. I don't want to think about this. It's too overwhelming. A, B, C, D, and E. And you know what? If you take it one situation at a time and say, okay, this has to be done first. Let me do this second. By the time you get done, it was like, well, why didn't I do this before?
Well, it's like
Start on it now. Why wait
Right.
until you? I'll do it tomorrow. It's just too much to think about. Right. I'm a list person. I have a list every single day. What I'm going to do.
I never was until just recently. But
welcome to the club.
When I moved 8 times in a year and a half all over
Oh,
the country
my
with
gosh.
2 small children, a baby and a 6-year-old, and people said after that, they said, "Why? How could you do that?" And I said, "What did you think about it?" I said, "Well, I was kind of young and stupid and I didn't really have it. I did have a choice. I mean, I could have stayed in the house and not seen my husband, and I didn't think that was it. But I mean, we were 6 weeks, 9 weeks, 3 months, 2 months, things like that.
Wow.
And then I said, but when you're going through it, you're so busy.
You don't realize.
Packing and
realize
unpacking and getting
we were
accustomed.
packing, unpacking.
Yeah.
You have to get a new doctor in every location
Right.
and I would call my dad from Hawaii, and I would say, everybody's sick, and he says, new location, new germs.
doctor. You're right.
And I remember one time, and I said, it was 9 o'clock at night, and I said, just call in a prescription. He said, I'm not licensed to practice medicine in the state of Hawaii. You've got to find a doctor. And I said, do you realize it's 9 o'clock? And he says, I do realize it's because it's 1 o'clock here, and I have to be in surgery at 7:30. So yes, he
Goodbye, honey.
Could we get off the phone and find a doctor?
There you go.
But-
So you know.
But it's kind of like, and then afterwards I thought, how did I do all this stuff? Pack all these boxes, move all these kids,
because
find
you had
schools,
to do
find
it.
a house, find,
There you go.
get all the utilities done, and then pack it all up again.
I
Okay,
hear
we're going to do our first free for all, and we're
Okay.
going to be talking about. I'm going to my class reunion tomorrow
Very
night.
exciting.
I know it's going to be fun. 50 years. Of course, I graduated when I was 10.
10.
Right.
But
I thought 8.
no, I stood back one. But no, that or like family reunions and stuff. I'm really looking forward to this. We've lost. My class lost. I went to a very small high school, and we lost kids in Vietnam. We lost many kids to cancer and various other things. So it's really dwindled down. And I thought, I asked John, I said, John, would you mind, was it going to bother you to go or what? He goes, no, I'm actually looking forward to it. So I said, okay, good, then let's go. It should be a lot of fun. But, I thought, I better go to this one because, they're going to have to start having them every 5 instead of 10 years because even though we're in our late 60s and many of us hope to God that we have, longevity,
Right.
but after what I've seen, I think that it's important, and like I say, memories, to go back and say, do you remember when, at that game, or do you remember at this or whatever, and it's a lot of fun, and the high school no longer exists.
Now, did you go to Martinez or?
No, I went to high school in Pittsburgh, and the school is no longer there.
Oh, okay.
So I was.
Is
I
it
was-
downtown? The downtown?
No, it was in the west part of Pittsburgh.
Oh, okay.
So it's no longer there. I
Okay.
think they turned it into a big junior high or something, and
Okay.
the kids are bused elsewhere. It was either Mount Diablo or Pittsburgh, so they built a high school in between, and that's where I went.
So
Okay.
what do you think you're kind of looking to see, or what are you anticipating is going to be the
The
highlight?
last one I went to, I thought, you thought you were walking into the gym or into class and everybody's the same. And there were people there that I go, oh my God, who's that?
Who's that?
You didn't know. As soon as I walked in, they knew, hey, Lombardi, you haven't
Yeah.
changed today or whatever. and I was lucky. But the thing is that some people have changed. I was shocked to see the transformation.
Physical change.
Yes, the
Yeah.
physical change, and
Yeah.
some of them the personality change. The ones that were outgoing were very quiet. A few of them were very quiet. The one that was the big jock and the brain on campus, and all the girls were crazy over the whole thing. He walked in and he looked like he was he looked like a joke on Saturday Night Live. And I thought, oh my gosh, and everybody had you on a pedestal. And then the little petite one, that a whole big thing, and she was totally different. But you know what? Even though she had changed physically, she was still the beautiful person that she was before. And we had a Miss, I think it was, no, I don't know if Judy was runner-up or she was Miss Teen USA.
Oh, wow.
Went to high school with her, absolutely adorable. She was a few years younger than us, but she married one of the guys from our class, and it was so much fun to see her. He is a big shot in Las Vegas, and you would have never known it in high school. Big shot in Las Vegas at a casino, and so I'm anxious to see if that still went. But I mean, I feel sorry for the spouse that goes along. I was lucky because when I went to my children's father, I had known, I was raised almost in the same area, so I had known a lot of the kids there. As a matter of fact, they thought I was in their class, and I wasn't. I was just married to one of the to the guy that graduated with them. So that was easier. And I lived in the same town in Martinez. So for me, it was no big deal. I knew 3/4 of the people there. But I don't know. It's like family reunions. When you go to a family reunion, it's really a lot of fun to connect with people that you haven't seen for a long time, or any kind of reunion.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of exciting in my mind. I'm curious to see what they look like a little bit, but mostly to see what they're doing.
Right.
And if they have kids, did they ever get married? Did they
Right.
stay with the one they married, right out
In
of high
high school.
I'm just curious about their lives and how they've led them and what they're doing now, and just So that, to me, that's like just a huge curiosity.
We have one of the girls, Peggy, in our class. She married a boy from our class, Leland, and she's been a widow now for about 5 or 6 years. And that was really difficult when I heard that, even though I don't have contact with any of them. My cousin Dave, who's like my big brother, 5 months older than I am, we went all through school together. So everybody thinks that we were brother and sister. So that's going to be fun, you know, because he's going to be there, and he's the life of the party anyway. So it's just going to be a lot of fun to see how many people have, you know, what avenue they've taken in their life.
When you were thinking, I've never been to one of my high school reunions, and I didn't really care to. I was there from my sophomore, junior, and senior, and I didn't go to school there and developed lots of friendships, and then we moved away. But I went to Ted's. And Ted grew up in Glendale in Southern California, and so it was Hoover High, and so I was talking to this guy who came up and talked to Ted and said, "Hi, Ted, how are you?" And so Ted turned around and talked to somebody else, and so I was talking to him, and I said, "So what do you do?" You know, meaning for a living.
Right.
And he said, "I live in my guest house, I rent out my house, and I ride my bicycle all the time." And so I was waiting
For the rest of it.
And that was it?
And that was it.
Oh,
And you know
wow.
what? Good for him. It sounds like a happy life.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, this was the 25th reunion, so I'm going, okay, let's see, you're like...
So
at that time, you know, mid-40s, early
50s,
50s.
yeah. And when we walked away, Ted says, he pretty much looks the same as he did. I mean, he really did. I mean, he looked like 10 years younger, and no stress.
Exactly.
No
nothing.
wife, no kids.
Somebody
no
else is
stress.
paying the mortgage, and people that rent the main house.
And he
get
just
to ride
rides his
my
bicycle, so he gets lots of fresh air and exercise.
Exactly.
How
But
funny is
that was, and so Ted
Price is so simple, huh?
Right. So then Ted came back over and he said, "What were you talking?" I said, "I was talking about what he does now."
I don't know, but I'm getting a bike.
So I told
And
Ted. He
fast.
says, "Well, does he work?" And I said,
No.
"I don't think so."
We had to take our last two.
Oh,
That's fun.
great.
That
Okay,
is funny.
roll it. Let's see. Number 5, having it all. Are the younger generation seeing what having it all means in a different light than we do? Oh, yeah.
And then we have our last free-for-all that we're going to talk about.
Okay.
So stay with us. We're going to take a very, very short break, and we'll be right back with you.
Just between us.
Hey, welcome back. I'm Susie from Volcano.
Monique from Pioneer.
And Pat from Cedar Creek.
Okay, our last one, having it all.
Having it all. That's a cool subject, having it all. Are the younger generation seeing what having it all means in a different light than we do?
Absolutely. I think that
Totally.
I think that they had what we had. They were born into it, where a lot of us didn't have that opportunity or have it all.
Right.
You know, I mean, I was raised in a very I'm not going to say middle class, but you know, we always had nice things and whatever. But today, I mean, a lot of these kids are born into it, and I don't think that they realize what goes into having it all, or as we say, you know, having it all, you know, for us and our family. But I think that maybe they take it for granted. Is that the word that I'm looking for? That they don't realize the hard work that went into it?
And there's a couple different sections of having it all. Having it all financially.
Right.
Okay. Having it all where you feel like your life is just the best it can possibly be. And I think there's two ways to look at it. You know, when I was young adult, you know, to mid-30s, even maybe early 40s, having it all to me was buy another house, have another investment property, another, you know, the job is big, you know, we're growing, we're still making money.
Right.
And, you know, the spouse is, you know, working hard, making money, and we've got this, like, long-term goal of how much money we're going to build and how many houses we're going to have, and, you know, this whole baloney. And then all of a sudden, you know, I realized I don't think that's it for me. I think having it all means being happy with my life, whether I'm married or not, doesn't matter. You know, being happy that my daughter is well and successful and moving on to her next stage of life.
Good health.
Good health. And then just feeling like, you know, every day is a blessing. Wake up in the morning and go, wow, I'm just so happy to be here.
You bet.
Well, I agree with you in that, and you, because I think that this is one of the things that irritates me no end, is that when we were all growing up, and you're a generation younger, I think, so, but I mean, it's like your parents probably didn't have a tremendous amount of money. They worked hard. They did this.
Right.
You increased what you were able to do financially, educational-wise, and so forth. But then you then have kids, and all of a sudden, there's a generation who looks at their mom and dad, and they may be 50 years old, and they've worked for 30 years, and all of a sudden it's like, well, I need a house like this, and I need 2 new cars, and we need to go to Costa Rica, or we need to go to Mexico every year because this is what I did when we were growing up.
I want.
But, gee, have you noticed the salary discrepancy and the fact that your mom and dad spent 30 years getting to this place? They didn't do this when they were 22 and 23. But that doesn't seem to register with a lot of younger people. And that really bothers me because I was talking to my brother not too long ago when we were talking about the people who strive, and it's first of all they say, I'm going to take care of my family and so forth, and then it gets to be the drive. It's not the goal. It's like it's making the money, it's getting the money, it's having it happen, and they're imparting that to their children. And now their children have then there's a group of people who they don't care how they get it.
Right.
It's just that they get
it. Right.
That global view.
And you have to have a good.
You have to have doesn't matter.
Right. You have to have a good work ethic. And this just maybe for you it fell a little bit easier for certain people, but you know what? I don't mean you per se, but I mean some people it's much easier for them. Because they can either walk into it, or it's a family-owned business, and they do that, or their education was paved the way for them. But the thing we have to remember is that there's no such thing as a free lunch, and we all we all have to pay the piper sooner or later. Okay, our last topic is free-for-alls, and Pat, you came up with pet peeves, so you go first.
That's one of my pet peeves. When you were saying there's no such thing as a free lunch, our 2 sons, who are 41 and 46, could sit in the back seat of the car when they were like 5 and 10 and go, we know there's no such thing as a free lunch.
How cute.
That is adorable.
And they will throw that at Ted now. It's like, we
that's
know, Dad. And the funny thing is that my pet peeve is the generation that the ends justifies the means. They don't really care how they get it. It's just that they do it.
Well, yeah, and I think people, maybe us as parents, they're raising these now teenagers that are going off to college. Have we done our job by showing these kids that you need to work for this? And when you go off to college, it was kind of cute because my daughter was, thinking about what to pack. And I said, well, if you pack that, you have to get it dry cleaned. And she goes, oh, I have to take it to the dry cleaners? I said, yeah, if you have money.
Yeah.
If you don't have any money, I don't think I would take that because, you need to get it dry cleaned each time you wear it. Take something you can wash. Oh, yeah, okay. And then I saw her just look blank. She has no idea what it costs to dry clean your clothes. So it's something that we need to work on and say.
But is that something that we've automatically done to protect them from having to do something like that? I don't even know the word protect.
Mostly, okay, Mom's going to take care of doing the dry
We're
cleaning.
going to do
Mom's
it.
going to take care of paying the vet bill.
And I think that's the important thing. Like when somebody goes from being at home into a marriage or going off to college and the whole thing, it's like, well, wait a minute, my mom did it. Well, too bad. You are an adult now. You're considered an adult, and now these little things are going to creep up on you. Right. But those are the things that make you grow. It's the little things that make you grow.
Well, and I mean, it's like teaching a child from the very beginning about money and where money comes from, how you get money, and so forth.
Right.
And one of the things that was interesting is that I lucked out in a way by marrying somebody like Ted, who had worked since he was 12 years old, having paper routes and things like that, because my mom and dad didn't make me do that. However, they were very, very careful about not, you know, my dad was a
Spoiling.
doctor,
Not
but they weren't
spoiling.
spoiling him,
Right.
and not being that, because in fact I remember my dad he was in partnership back when we lived in Oklahoma with another doctor, and my mom told me as a grown-up, she said it was kind of funny because they called my dad the poor doctor and the other guy the rich doctor.
See?
And they belonged to the same country club. They did all the same things. They had all the same friends. And my dad told me, he says, we split everything right down the middle. They spend it and we don't.
There you go.
And my mother was always saying to me, we can't afford to buy this
Right now.
month, this
Right.
week. We will wait until next week. So I assumed that, you know, you have to wait to buy things. You can't buy everything. And we could have afforded it. It was just the way
But
my
that-
parents.
but your
that's-
parents,
but
they had that,
at least
that,
they did
that
that.
ethic. Right.
I mean, they never told me anything about money, and had almost had a heart attack when I told him what I thought he would earn once he got out of college, because he almost drove the car off the road.
Right. That was different. What is your pet peeve, Monique?
Pet peeve, you know, I'm weird about the house being clean. Okay, so my pet peeve is if you take it out, put it back.
Mhm.
If you drop something, get a broom, clean it up. And it just grinds on my nerves sometimes when that doesn't happen. And you know, it's simple. These are dumb, stupid little things, you know. These are not life changers.
No,
I'm weird about the house.
I'm the same way. One of my pet peeves is that we forget to thank our spouse and our good friends. We take them for granted. So a lot of times I forget to say thank you. So thank you, John, because he's my buddy, my best friend, and my hubby. But like even friends sometimes, you know, just that phone call that you forget to say thank you. So, you know, I really appreciate that. But sometimes we forget to say, hey, you know, thanks for giving me a buzz or whatever. Thanks for calling. So I really, really think that we need to take time out more
thank
so
yous.
for the thank
You know
yous.
what I think is important too on the thank yous is that, you know, my whole life, whether it was my father or my husband at the time or, you know, my boyfriend, when they would take me out for lunch, dinner, buy me something, whatever it was, I always said thank you.
I
it
still
could
do
be
to my-
an
to my-
ice cream.
Yeah.
And thank you. You know, that was really nice
That's
of you.
what I do. I
Somebody
do
has
that to
spent,
my
you know,
husband.
their hard-earned money,
You bet.
taken the time out of their day to do something
Well.
with you, whether even if it's dinner, we all have to eat, but take time to sit down with you at dinner. Always say thank you.
That's like
Well,
John and I. We have a
yeah.
date once a week, and if I buy, he says thank you. If he buys, I always thank him, and I think that that's important.
Well, it's like I thank Ted when he'll empty out the dishwasher, and I'll say, thank you for doing that. And he says, you don't have to thank me. And I said, yeah, I do.
Yeah, I think
It's interesting because we had both sets of grandchildren here, and we had the 4- and 7-year-old for a week. And one of the things that's so funny is that the 4-year-old was continually thanking me for things because that's what we taught. And I know when the first set of grandkids came along, they would, from very small children, they'd say, thank you, Noni, for doing that for us. Thank you for, you know.
you're Noni
My
too.
daughter
Yeah,
is the
that's how mine
same
is.
way. You know, 18 years old, you think she could be pretty self-centered, but she's not. And you know, I took her to buy all the things for her dorm yesterday.
How
We shopped all day. I was exhausted.
I know.
And I got home. She goes, Mom, thanks for taking me
Isn't that
shopping.
sweet?
Yeah.
Because we'd had a party the night before, stayed up really late. I'd been in and out of town. You know, just really busy, working
Sure.
as much as I can.
But that's when you feel like I did something right.
Yeah.
And
we
she
have
goes,
to
Mom,
take a
I
little.
love you. Thank you.
We have to take a little short break. We'll be right back with our hot topic.
Just Between Us, a spontaneous, intuitive live television show with topics that are intended to inspire, delight, educate, and encourage. And now back to Just Between Us.
Welcome back to Just Between Us, and we're going to start in, ladies, with our hot topic. And our hot topic today is do you feel that we will go back into the Middle East and have another confrontation, especially with the faction of ISIS, due to the fact that ISIS is very hot right now. Obviously, they beheaded the American journalist, and they have another one held captive. They marched, I believe it was I can't remember, 70,000. They've killed 70,000. They've killed over 200 and something thousand already. They hacked a little 5-year-old boy in half the other day. Their goal is to see their flag flying in the United States and to kill as many Christians and Jews as they can.
Well, we might not have to go over there to start the fight. Maybe they're already here. Maybe
There
they're
is,
going to start it here.
you know what? This is the group that our government 6-7 months ago said they're junior varsity, they're no big deal. No, they are a big deal. And I think that's why all of a sudden they've changed their tune this last week and they have admitted we've got a big problem. These people, if you can possibly fathom this, are worse than the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. And they, especially with our open borders and everything, they're coming through.
Sure.
And they have already said now that they're here. Now we have found out that we have 2 young men that were United States citizens that were over there fighting for them, and they were killed. So they believe that they have about 500 American citizens that are fighting with this faction right now, and England has some. So England and the United States have their hands full right now, and I think that it is. And I don't know where the answer lies. That is up to our government to make that decision, whether they go over and confront and to do what they have to do to chop the enemy's head off, or do we just sit and wait and see what happens? That is a decision that only the president and his cabinet can make. I do know that these people. I saw a map of Syria, Iraq, and I think it was another country. I can't remember, but they control a lot. I mean, they control a big faction of the Middle East, and they want to conquer more. They had about 20 more cities that they wanted to take over. They've hijacked oil fields, so they are the monetary is it's theirs.
It's in the unit.
They make about $2 million. I think I don't know if it's $2 million a day or $2 million a week.
That's
but they're self-funded.
Yeah.
They're self-funded because of the ruthlessness and whatever.
Well, I think it's important to take it seriously. I don't know if you're aware, but this morning on the news, Great Britain has raised their security level to the point where they feel like there's a threat. There's an imminent threat.
And a lot of them are coming out of they have a big faction in England that have not come out and said that they are ISIS, but they know that they are affiliated either with them, the Taliban, or Al-Qaeda. I know that the government has given, I forget the name of the university, $1 million to basically read private citizens' emails to see if they can find
a link.
Any types of links.
Yeah.
Now, we're going back to freedom of speech, and we're going back to Homeland Security. Wait a minute, this is my business, what I write on here, whether I disagree or agree with the government. Okay, but the thing is, folks, we live in a different country now, and we have our freedoms still, but they are being modified and they're being watched closely. So what do we do?
We're looking out for the best interests of our country as a whole.
Well, and the other thing is that one of the things that the United States has a block against getting into these things, because we've never, except for, the towers and some other isolated instances, we don't have people fighting on our soil to the extent that they have.
Right. And the terrorism in the U.S. is so much less than, let's say, in England. I mean, England, there's something going on all the time.
But we have to remember, too, that we have our organizations out there, that there are terrorist threats all the time. They're stopping things before they even that we even know. And like a lot of people are saying, that because the president said yesterday that we don't have a plan or whatever, people are criticizing. Did it ever dawn on you that maybe they do have a plan? Did you know about the plan to get Osama bin Laden? And no, you didn't until that had happened. And that's the way that it should be. The American people don't have to know everything. And I think that what we have to do is that we can't be critical. Yeah, I think a lot of us want to go over there and confront and take them out or whatever. We've been over there long enough.
Right.
And obviously, some of the people that we have helped are help funding this ISIS. They're desperately afraid of them. So I think that I think we need to sit back and we need to wait and watch and see what's transacted.
I agree. Instead of jumping in, let's see what happens.
Let's wait and see what happens. We take a short break. We'll be right back.
Just between us, a spontaneous, intuitive live television show with topics that are intended to inspire, delight, educate, and encourage. And now back to Just Between Us.
If you want to get a hold of us, we're at 223-4877. If you want to fax us, we're at 223-4866. Or if you want to email us, we're at bookme@tspntv.com. And I want to say good morning to Martha. I hope she's feeling a little bit better. She was under the weather. And in thanking people, I want to thank two of my dear friends, Raylene and Diana, for their friendship, because they're wonderful people. And I love you dearly. And Monique, thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure.
It was wonderful to see you. And Patricia, as always, it's so nice to see you.
It's nice to be back a little bit.
It is.
It's nice chatting with you.
Yes,
Enjoyed your company.
that's the first time you two ladies have met, so I hope
think
that
so.
you will be back on the panel again. And I'm going to go home and pack and get ready for my reunion.
Well, have a
Oh,
blast.
have a
I hope
great
it's
time.
I am. I'm not going to try to do the twist because everything's been twisted. And I'd have to untwist it. So I'm going to mind my P's and Q's, as they say, and just have a good time. Oh, I'll have a few. I'll have a few under my belt.
Pints and quarts.
No, I'm not that brave. I may have a little of a pint, but that's about it. Just enough to loosen up, and you know, it's awkward when you first walk in because you just don't
a little
know.
uncomfortable.
Yeah, but I was lucky because I didn't have any rivalries or rifts or whatever with anybody. So for me, I'm looking forward, and there's so many wonderful people that I went to high school with. I mean, I can't name anybody that I didn't like. You know, there was obviously different people took different avenues, but you know, you got to respect for what they've done. But anyway,
time's gone by. Enjoy everybody.
Oh, it's going to be a lot of fun. Anyway, we want to let everybody know we enjoy you being with us, and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.